You are we live? Do we have the sound?
Yes, the sound camera.
You pushed the button. I pushed the wrong button.
Yes, you did.
Lino told me, Michael, you have one job, and it's to push this button. And I pushed the wrong button. And that's where we're at.
But that's okay, Michael. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome to the Edmundite Show. Episode 7.
Episode 7. Michael, how you doing?
I'm fine. I just wrapped up today the course I'm teaching here. We have a study session on Friday and then an exam on Tuesday. But in terms of me giving lectures and new material, it's
done for this semester.
It's done for this semester.
That's good to hear. Yeah. The break is coming. It's coming fast.
I want it to happen, as you would say, soon and very soon.
Very soon. Yes.
It's been a good semester, but it's that period of time where people are getting a little flustered or stressed or whatever you want to term it as.
Yeah.
And here we are.
So, Michael, today, as the title says, before we go there, remind people that we have the chat is live.
Please.
You can leave your questions and messages there, and trying to figure out a way to put it on the screens. You can see it there too.
Yeah.
Maybe get the conversation going next time.
Yeah, we're still work in progress, I would say, but we do what we can. We do it all for you.
Yeah,
we do it all for you.
So our topic today, Michael, is the Immaculate Conception.
That's true, and I think the reason why is because that happens on Friday.
On Friday, yes.
It's happening soon.
December 8th.
December
Friday.
8th. Holy day.
Holy day of obligation.
Go to church.
Please.
Since we're advertising, I'll say this. I am saying Mass in Essex Junction at St. Lawrence at 8 o'clock. And
I have the 11:30 a.m. at St. Michael's College.
We're going to have a ball. It's just going to be great.
Yeah. So, because we celebrate in December 8th, we celebrate the Solemnity of the Immaculate Conception of our Blessed Virgin, or the Blessed Virgin Mary.
Yeah.
I wrote this all day long. I've been reading all day long about this, and I forgot.
Research. I will vouch for him. He's been doing research on this and reading about it. So
today we, as I said, we're going to talk about that and see how it comes about it and why the church decided to put this feast together, or the Solemnity of the Immaculate Conception. By the way, the Immaculate Conception, if I'm not wrong, is the patron saint of the Diocese of Burlington.
Yes, not only the Diocese of Burlington, but the United States as a whole.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep, so it's the patronal feast of the United States.
Cool.
And of Vermont.
So, knowing about this, not only Solemnity of the Church universal, but also a very particular day for our diocese here in Vermont and in Burlington. Yep.
Now, we're going to go more into depth in this.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most misunderstood things about the Immaculate Conception is the fact that it is about Mary's conception.
Yes.
Jesus' conception is a whole different piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
But the Immaculate Conception talks about the way in which Mary was conceived. So that's point number one I want to make.
Yep.
Point number two is something that should be really obvious, but I never quite understood it in terms of why this feast happens to fall on December 8th. Do you know why?
I have no idea. In the research I did, I don't know why.
I found the answer out, and it's just one of those little things. So the church recognizes Mary's birthday, the birth of Mary, on September 8th.
Oh, right.
So 9 months later.
Before that.
9 months before, rather.
Yeah.
The Immaculate Conception.
Of course.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's really obvious, but you don't know it until you
think about
find it. So
yeah.
That's where I'm going to start with that.
Yeah. So before Michael and I talked about this before talking about the Immaculate Conception.
Yep.
The Immaculate Conception and the Assumption of the Virgin Mary to heaven,
which is August 15th.
August 15th, in body and soul, brings us. These are the two only dogmas in the church that were declared what is known as ex cathedra.
That's right.
Which means in Latin, from the chair. And these are the only two times the Pope has, or a Pope has made use of
that ability.
That ability to do, which is the ability to declare a dogma infallibly, and it has to be believed by everybody.
Right. So basically, to break that down even more, it's the Pope saying, here is a belief that all Catholics are bound to hold, and I'm making a statement that it is a belief. Just to dial it back too, because I'm always interested in words and word origins and things, and this may be something that people know, but the term ex cathedra, from the chair itself, has some symbolic weight, because in the Church's tradition, somebody that had a chair, who had a seat,
the cathedra.
In sort of ancient times, teachers would teach from a seat, from their chair. So every bishop throughout the world has what we call a cathedra, which is the fancy word for chair. So even in Burlington, you can go to the cathedral and there's a special chair. That's the bishop's chair, the cathedra. That's the seat of his authority, as it were. So when we're talking about the Pope making an ex cathedra thing, it's his seat as the Bishop of Rome, as the leader,
as a teacher
of the Church, as the teacher of the Church. Exactly.
Yeah, and the tradition comes because the rabbi, the teacher, especially in the times of Jesus, when they were going to do their job, was teaching, they will usually sit down, and their pupils will be kneeling or sitting on the ground around this person that's going to teach. There's two instances in the Gospel of Matthew, at least, that I was reading today about this, is that the first one is in Matthew 5, before Jesus is going to give us the Beatitudes. He goes up the mountain and sits down. So that, for us, that going up the mountain and sitting down doesn't say much, but if you have this background, this cultural background, when Jesus sits down, it means that he's taking the position of the teacher. He's going to teach us.
Yep, exactly.
And the other is, I don't remember the quote, I think it's Matthew 23. I don't know if I'm correct, but
you can correct him in the chat.
Yeah, but
someone
but Jesus calls the and says that the rabbis, or no, the Pharisees and Sadducees have used the chair of Moses to teach the people. So it's the same idea. So the one who sits in the cathedra is the one who has the authority to teach. So that's why they do that. One of the ways that the Church still does this today, Michael, and I think it's beautiful, is at priests and deacons ordinations. After the gospel, a chair is brought in front of the altar, 3 chairs, and the bishop sits in the middle one, and he preaches from there. So he preaches from the cathedra. He's teaching about the sacrament, and he's teaching us about what is going to happen. I think it's a beautiful.
Absolutely. Though I will say, and of course I'm not a bishop or someone high in the church hierarchy, when I teach in my class, I'm wandering all around the room and really exploring the space. So it's not that traditionally teaching must be from a chair, but in Catholic tradition, and as Lino was laying out the history of it, there's a certain symbolism there that's powerful.
Yeah, they didn't have PowerPoint at that time.
They didn't have PowerPoint. I would have been lost. Though my students, if I was teaching 2,000 years ago, they'd probably be doodling by chipping silly things into stone or something. They'd find a way to do it.
So that's the way. So the solemnity, or the dogma of the Immaculate Conception.
That's how it came about.
It came about. Well, it didn't come about that way. I mean, there was a tradition in the Church already celebrating the conception of the Virgin Mary.
Right.
And if you read the encyclical letter in the Fabilis Deus, I was reading it today to do this show. Pope Pius the IX, I think, if I remember correctly, he establishes there the position of the Church, and he says there that the Church, before he does this encyclical, has already been celebrating the birth, the conception of Mary, and this idea of the Immaculate Conception. So it's something that grew up from the devotion and the church liturgy, and that the Pope just said, well, okay. So when popes do something ex cathedra, it's not that they woke up that day saying, like, oh, let's do this.
New idea,
They usually consult the people.
Right. And they confirm something that had already been tradition just kind of formalized.
And they touch base with their bishops, and it's something that is planned out and it's thought about. I mean, it's not that they happen because
and I think that's an important point, because there's this notion when people hear there's this thing called papal infallibility and the Pope is infallible. It's not, as Lino says, you can't wake up in the morning and say, I think it's gonna rain today, and then the sun is out and people say, well, look at the Pope, he's not infallible. It's like that's a stupid example, obviously, but it has to be a very formalized set of events that happens in order for it to be infallible teaching in that sense. So
the Immaculate Conception, then,
yes,
Michael,
Lino,
is I love it because it's one of the few, well, not one of the few, but one of the dogmas that has the meaning in the word.
Yep.
The Immaculate means without a stain, without macula, or without a stain, without a pure. So the dogma, what it teaches is that the Virgin Mary, when she was conceived, God in His goodness and in His grace conceived her, or she was conceived without any sin, without even the sin of the original sin. So that's one of the things that that's pretty much what the dogma is all about.
Yeah, and just to qualify it a little bit, she was conceived without sin. That doesn't mean to confuse it with the way that the Church believes that Jesus was conceived. So Mary was conceived in the way that humans typically are. So male, female, married, getting together, and producing a child, as most families happen that way. So it's not this notion that Mary herself was conceived, by a virgin mother. That's not it. But herself was without this notion of original sin, as Lino said. And the reason for that, theologically, would be in order to bring into the world Jesus Christ, the Son of God, who similarly is conceived without sin. The logic behind it is, well, the mom that brings us into the world has to be special in that way too.
Yep, like the idea of the worthy vessel, even though it sounds weird, but God is looking for.
It's just a different language maybe than we would use in day-to-day life, but I think it gets the meaning across of what it's trying to impart.
What God was looking for was to
there's like some buzzing or something going on in our studio here, so we apologize if we're distracted by that.
And somebody was calling to my cell phone, so sorry. But the idea is that so Jesus, because the Son of God, who is all perfect and without sin, needed to be conceived by a woman that was clean, that was without stain. That was one of the things that moved the dogma. The other thing I was reading today is also the Pope and the bishops at the time were thinking about Mary as immaculate because of the greeting of the angel. So the angel, if you remember, called Mary the full of grace. A greeting that a couple of words that we haven't heard of anyone before in the Bible.
Sure.
So it's the first time in the whole history of salvation that someone is called full of grace, and the Lord is with you. So someone is full of grace that has all that, and hopefully we all get it sometime. It has to be someone that hasn't known sin.
Right. And I'll choose my words carefully here because I don't want to get on a soapbox. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful notion. It's an interesting theological piece, and I'm not saying it's wrong in any sense like that. So this notion that Mary, for the reasons that we outlined, was specially chosen, I don't want that to be then implied that, because we're using words like clean, we're using words like pure, I don't want that to imply that other people are so wretched or dirty or something like that. I don't think it's that at all. It's true in that we are creatures. We are sinful and this and that, but we have within us the potential to reach the same height, as it were, as Mary did and the other saints did. So I'm just very careful because unintentionally, I think, but it has happened that some of this language can be used in a way to say, well, people are, these wretched and nasty things, and I
think that the Immaculate Conception, what it goes to is that idea that Mary was conceived, like all of us, we are born what is called the original sin,
right?
And that's why we are baptized. Our baptism not only cleans or cleanses all the
takes care of
the other sins, but also is a help to that original sin, that natural tendency that we all human beings have to, as St. Paul says it, to do the wrong we don't want to do, but
not do the good we do want to do.
Yeah. So I think that's the difference. That Virgin Mary was conceived. God made a favor to her in the fact that she was conceived without that inclination to sin, without that original sin that we carry since Adam and Eve, and as the way that sin came into the world. So Mary was, by the grace of God, by the power of God, was given that gift, if you will, that she didn't have to go through that as we do.
And I think this is really fascinating. Well, for a lot of reasons, really fascinating. But this notion that these events happened according to Catholic tradition, according to Catholic belief, this shows that God cares enough about creation. God cares enough about us to sort of put these things into motion. These are examples of God doing work that goes outside of the natural order, as it were, something extraordinary. So the fact that this is a God that is wanting to do these things and wanting to provide a means for us to, better our own lot in the universe or whatever it is, God cares about humans. God wants this opportunity for humans. God loves people and wants this to be something that we all share in. So in a way, I view it as something very hopeful in the truest sense. It's an event that shows God intervening in a particular way into our reality in order to benefit us, which is a powerful thing.
Yeah. So as we said, we celebrate on Friday. We're going to be celebrating the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, and think about
Solemnity.
The Solemnity. Sorry, we're going to be celebrating this, the idea that God wanted Mary to be a worthy vessel. As I said, she will be clean from sin, so she could be worthy of carrying baby Jesus, which is amazing to me, if you will, that Mary had these privilege, if you will, that we're going to share with her when we go to heaven. So you can say that Mary somehow live a little bit of heaven here,
almost
on
heaven
earth.
On earth. And this is maybe not giving it away. I can't even think of the word that I'm looking for, but something that we alluded to earlier, the notion of a different solemnity, but related in some sense. The Assumption of Mary says that Mary was taken up into heaven, bodily, fully. So if we say that she had a little piece of heaven on earth with her, it's like almost she was between two planes, which is an interesting thing. I hope this isn't totally off topic, but just real quick, people may not know this. So I just said to Lino that Immaculate Conception is a solemnity. Different days in the church have different sort of ranks, and the highest is a solemnity. So there's certain days like the Immaculate Conception that are this. The Assumption would be one.
For us, the feast day of St. Edmund.
Feast day of St. Edmund. So they're the highest level of celebration. Every Sunday is a solemnity, so it happens every week. And what's different about that is there's certain parts to the Mass. So at solemnity, the highest point, a prayer called the Gloria will be said during Mass. The Creed will be said during Mass. And I think those are the two.
And there's days of obligation. I mean,
the days of obligation. So people are asked to come. Every day of obligation is a solemnity, but not every solemnity is a day of obligation. And then next below on the list are days that are called feasts. And so those are kind of intermediary things. What's different about those is the Gloria is said, but not the Creed. So there you go. And then if you're a daily mass goer, a typical daily mass will be either a memorial, which is a celebration of a saint, which is at a lower level, or what's called a ferial day, a day where there's nothing in particular on the calendar. And so what mass looks like on days like those is that there's no Gloria and there's no Creed, so it's kind of more of a basic thing.
And because I'm the director of Vocational Society, every time I can celebrate a mass that I can, page 1111 and the Roman Missal,
which is the votive mass for
for the vocations for religious life.
There you go. There's a plug for you.
There's a page that I know by heart, because every time I can, I say, because we need vocations, folks. So
I mean, wouldn't you love to join Lino and I on our radio show? These are just one of the many opportunities that is open before you if you want a vocation. It's a good life. It's a wonderful thing, and it's a blessing.
Yeah, totally.
In all seriousness. So Lino, as I alluded to earlier, so sort of the semester is wrapping up here at St. Michael's College. Do you have any general thoughts on the semester or some of the things you've seen working here? It's okay.
No, it's a little work. Yeah. It's the work you would do usually in 1 year wrapped up in 16 weeks.
Yep.
So that makes for a lot of...
Especially for you who were just getting into the ropes of a new position.
So it's been good. No complaints here. But it's a very accelerated pace, with the advantage that a week from Friday, the students are gone, and then we kind of go into this slow pace.
Here's the thing: we love students. And we hope that students love us, but I think it's a mutual thing. When the students go away on break, they're happy, and when we are away on break, we're also happy. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. We'll be even more.
No, but I think that idea of
having time to have breaks is important.
Very condensed work in 16 weeks.
Absolutely.
But then we have for us it's different because we'll still have to push through Christmas.
Sure.
But having to, the students not being here,
right. Our focus can be more.
There's a layer of responsibility that it's away from for a while. So,
it's all for the good, all for the greater glory of God.
Yeah. So we invite you then again to celebrate the feast of the Immaculate Conception. The feast, not. I'm.
Didn't we go through this?
Yes, sorry. Solemnity.
Get that creed in there.
Solemnity. The solemnity of the Immaculate Conception. That day, if you can, say a prayer for Michael and for myself, that we can finish the year in the same spirits. And continue your search or your hope on your waiting on Advent. And if you don't have anything else to say, Michael?
Lino, I can't say that I do at this time. Great. It's always a pleasure.
So, as usual, please subscribe down there. This is the subscribe button. If you hit the bell button, it's going to tell you every time we post something new. It's going to send you emails and messages when we are live, so you can join us live and leave us your comments. And subscribe, as I said, and if you're watching this after we did it live, give us a like or dislike, depending if you like it or not,
or the feedback.
And please, if you have any questions or comments, leave us down there, and we will do our best to get back to you. And if that's it, Michael, have a happy Solemnity of the Feast, Solemnity of the Immaculate Conception, and celebrate the second Sunday of Advent, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you.